there, welcome back to another set of shows. This is my last set for this year. I'm going to do a best of, which will probably come late this week, early next week, depending when I do it. I've really kind of stopped watching the kind of serious films. At a certain point, yesterday was, you get to the point of, it's Christmas era, I just can't be bothered. A 3-hour, depressing epic doesn't seem to fill me with joy. Just the thought of that doesn't fill me with joy anymore. I'd rather do that in January when it's cold and we're post-Christmas. I'll wait. So there was that element now coming into my plans. So if I haven't seen it by now, there's a good chance I'm not going to see it till next year if it's something serious. So there we go. That's the issue. So I'll do my video. I'll see what I watch this week, but I'll probably do it late in the week, early next week, the best of the year. So far, there's only 4. There's not a top 10. I'll look around, see if there's I want to change anything. But at the moment, it's 4. And some honourable mentions and things. So, it's not been the greatest of year for watching stuff, in the cinema. There's been good things, but a lot of them I wouldn't say are top 10, films. They're enjoyable. Anyway, go beyond that. So now I'm going to talk about Babylon and Wonka. Both of these films have come out, one at the beginning of this year in Britain, and it came out last year in America, but it counts as a 2023 one in Britain. And this is wonderful. And Wonka came out pretty much this weekend, and I think that was pretty damn good. So these are 2 films about making things and the pain of making things, and they're very different, though. I mean, one's been Damien Chazelle when it's about the dark side of it all, and then you have Wonka, which is a fantasy made by Paul King, who made Paddington, and that's more optimistic. Even though there's darkness there, it's very much an optimistic film. So there's 2 different takes on the same idea of what it is to make something, what it is to try and create something that you will that'll give your life meaning. And what happens to it when you face difficulties and you face challenges to it. One's much more realistic and one's much more of a fantasy, feel-good fantasy. But I thought they'd be a good duo to match because they both came out within 12 months of each other, but they're both the opposite of each other. They're kind of the very different takes on the same kind of idea. So Babylon we'll start with. Babylon is set during the silent era and the sound era. Basically, it's about what happens when sound comes in. Because before sound, silent era, there was a way of doing things. There was a technique how to make films. There was a technique how to deliver on films, how to make films en masse. And depending on different budget levels, but there was ways to do it. And there was actors who knew how to act for silent era. They understood what was needed in the looks, what was needed in the emotions and body language. It was all about body language, really, and the pacing of body language. It was really about that. How you connect with an audience, how you don't connect with an audience. And when sound came in, it changed everything, because some people could talk fine, and other people who were silent gods had very monotone voices who couldn't infer things with their voices. They had been so focused on the stylization of becoming a silent movie star that they never really went to do theatre. They didn't really put the work in that area to actually learn it. So they suddenly became obsolete. Well, a lot of theatre actors who had been ignored in silent era suddenly very much in demand because they could do all that stuff, and they were people who could actually carry films because they could talk. So it's about that era. Now, there have been films in the past I've looked at that era. You've had Singing in the Rain, you've got Nickelodeon with the silent era. And this film, even though it takes place in the late 20s to early 30s, its take on the silent era could cover the whole silent era. It's trying to compress everything into a few years, but the silent era does get compressed into a lot of stuff happening in one time. And the sound era, you're getting a lot of things that happened during the sound era compressed into a short time. So it's not a film that's about reality. It's about it's about the atmosphere rather than the actual reality of it all. And that's what some people have missed, I think. Some people are looking for almost a documentary. And you're not getting that with this film. You're getting a sense of what the eras were. And you have to compress it down for a 3-hour running time. Because it's a 3-hour film, but it does not feel like a 3-hour film. It's one of those films that you just don't feel the pacing or anything. It just feels like there's a lot there. Because the first half of the movie is almost a film that set up the sound era. And then the second half is about the sound era. So they're in distinct areas where people get established in one era and then move over to another era. And it's almost like the sequel to it. It's like what happens to them next once you've established who they are and what the problems are. So I mean, I said sequel, but also could be just 2-act structure really, because there's only 2 acts: introduction in one era, evolution or devolution in another era. And this is a film that, even though it's compressing a lot, and even though it's showing you things that would not happen in such a small amount of time, and has been crude and been very kind of outrageous to show you what's going on, it is showing you the essence of the eras. That's what it's trying to get across. But it wasn't really liked. This film came out and it was meant to be an Oscar film. That's why they spent all the money on it. The funny thing is, Universal made this film, and they spent a lot of money in this one, and they spent a lot of money in Oppenheimer, and one hit big and one did not. It was like that thing. They took 2 risks. They did the blockbuster film. They took 2 big risks with 2 or 2 directors. One succeeded, one failed. But even the failure was really fascinating. It's one of the films that will keep getting watched because it is interesting. It is a unique film. It's not what you'd expect. And, it just was one of those situations where it was too extreme for... Like, it was, what's the audience for this film? It's like, the audience for this film is me. And people like me. It's not really a mainstream film. It's a film you make when you made a bunch of hits and you've got money and you can try something different. And so this film is about an era that's passing. So the first half essentially is you see it through the eyes of Manny, who's a Mexican immigrant who is working for a big producer just as a dog's body. But he catches the eye of Brad Pitt's character because he needs someone. This movie star is spinning out of control, and he notices that Manny's actually very competent. So he brings him to his team, and through this era, the silent era, as Brad Pitt's character is at the peak, he becomes one of his team and learns how to do everything that's needed to be done to make films work. And you see in this era that Brad Pitt's character is a drunk, he's a womanizer, but he knows what he's doing. As soon as the camera turns, he can turn it on like that and do what he needs to do. And around him is chaos. He's an artist in a sense of he might not be intellectually that advanced. I mean, most of the stuff he says is basically things he's read, and it's very generalised. And Pitt has a ball with that because he understands that character, the kind of slightly pretentious movie star who knows they don't know as much as people expect them to know, but does have ambitions even though they can't quite articulate it, and does have a lot of flaws and does react wrong a lot of the time, but he understands what he's meant to be doing in his career. So he's just enjoying himself because there's fun and there's depth. Margot Robbie comes into the whole thing as this new ingenue who crashes the party because she's basically living in Skid Row at the time. She has a mad mother and a conman father, and so she's got a bit of both in them, in her really base, both of their personalities in her, and she knows to behave like a star to get attention, and it works. She blags her way in with the help of Manny, who just spots and thinks she's interesting, catches the eye of the producer, and is given a small part in a film the next day, and then she goes to the set and sees the chaos of making films. Like, there's this one field and there's like 5 films made on it in different sets. And because it's all silent, you don't have to worry about the sound. So it's like it doesn't matter if something's getting blown up down the field further along. So you've got this epic going on in one part of the field, and you've got a barroom fight going in another part of the field, and you've got comedy going in another bit, and it's chaos. But it can be done because they've actually not have to worry about sound. And during her time, this little part, she actually shows off that she can do so much more than most, and she starts to slowly be brought in to the field of acting, because it's like, this is a talent, this is a full-on talent. And she's kind of contrasted with Pitt's character, who, she's obviously crazy and he's quietly crazy, but they're both this sense of the people, the talent in the town tend to be crazy, including the producers, including all the people behind the scenes. They've all got their issues, and so it's like at the top they don't have to deal with those issues. They don't have to deal with the fact that Robbie tends to cause chaos wherever she goes. Her character causes chaos. Like, it's her existence. Chaos is her existence. She doesn't really know how to move beyond it. And even this relationship she has tends to go wrong. And she has a gay relationship with this other woman for a bit that the studios hide. And Brad Pitt's character has all these marriages that collapse pretty quickly. And there's a sense of it's a circus. Pitt has this character this is producer George, played by Lucas Haas, who's a depressive who really is into women and gets depressed about them, and there's all sorts of things that are going to lead to darker paths down the line in the film. So that's the setup, and then sound comes, and sound creates this issue where the films don't really. I'm going to have to switch this to. I'm getting used to this camera. it's very difficult. Right. So basically, when sound comes, a lot of people's problems get elevated to be something that's more of a problem. It's something that's a real issue for them. That Pitt's character cannot do dialogue. He's married to a theatre actress who keeps on telling him you have to intone things, and he doesn't get it, so he becomes... His scenes become funny because he can't quite find tone in his voice to create something fascinating for the audience. The magic is gone with him as soon as sound comes in, even though he was a guy who was really fascinated by sound. Robbie's character can transfer over. Like, she knows how to do the sound. There's a great sequence in the middle of the film where she's one of the first actresses doing a sound sequence. She still doesn't know how to do it. She ends up punching the sound guy because he's so annoying to her. But she's the one who can figure it out. Like, this does this does this. And once she's got it, she's got it. Like, she's figured out the compromises she has to make and where she can still work. But she's undone by the fact that she's crazy and she doesn't know how to deal with the politics of the town. Where Pitt can deal with the politics bit, so they can deal with the acting side of it. She can deal with the acting bit, but she can't deal with the politics of having her life make any sense to her. So it becomes an issue for both characters, as like, how do they survive in the sound era? And you've got Manny, who has, during this same time, he's built himself up as a reputation as being someone who can spot talent, can, because he's from a minority, he can spot the people that they're forgetting about, but he can organise things, he can think fast, work on his feet. I mean, there's an early point where he has to go and get, all the cameras are destroyed during this film that's epic. He has to go and get this one camera to get this one shot for the end of the day for the film, which becomes the iconic shot of the film. So this whole time, having to drive through LA to get this location, to get this camera, to bring it back, and there's all sorts of fun things going on there. But he learns how to cope. But now he's actually kind of dragged down, because he's the character of, like, Robbie's character and Pitt's character don't really know each other, only by reputation. He's the guy who knows both of them. And he knows this black musician who has a lot of talent, so he brings him up as someone who could be in the movies now, because there's sound involved. So he's dealing with the talent, but as the film goes on, he becomes a guy who has to deal with all the nasty side of dealing with talent, like having to manipulate them, having to treat them like children, and having to make them do things they don't want to do. So the black musician character learns. He gets some money, and then at a certain point he realises it's not worth your soul, because you're going to be asked to do things you're not comfortable with. So he leaves. But Pitt and Robbie's characters are much more defined by the movie industry, and they can't quite escape it. And slowly you see them fail, and you see them realising where the movie industry has moved on from them. It doesn't really need them. There's always someone else coming through that can last a few years and then get replaced. It's not about them. And it's like, how do they deal with that? How's their abilities within finding out that they're not as important as they thought they were? And it's all about that, how the movie industry just brings you up, but it will throw you out if you're no longer making money. And within that, you get a lot of other interesting characters. You get Gene Smart as this gossip columnist. You get Tobey Maguire in one sequence where they have to go to try and deal with this gangster, and he's this gangster who's absolutely crazy, and it's like he's all the brakes turned off, and he's having a ball, and it's a great sequence. It's a standout sequence of the film. And the sound, learn how to use sound, are the two standout sequences of the film. But all this film really worked. The only thing I'm going to say is the last third is a little bit less cohesive. The first two thirds feel like it's got a real momentum and it really understands where it's going. The last third, either they've taken something out, or they need to put some, they need to cut it down a little bit. I don't know, but it does feel a little bit less focused. But not much though. I mean, it's still very, very enjoyable. Just in a sense of it's the weakest of the third, even though it is one of the best sequences. And the ending is satisfying. The ending does work. It's just a lot of people didn't like the ending. They liked the film. I liked the film and I liked the ending. Even though the ending's a bit over the top, it does work. It does have a sense of time passing and what it means to you as the time passes, as your time in the sun passes. What's the effect on you? So that's Babylon. I'm trying to avoid specifics over certain things because it is a new film, so I'm trying to avoid saying too much. But I would definitely say go watch the film. It is really well made. All the acting's good. Everyone understands their characters perfectly, and it's one of those films that is going to be. It's very underrated. I think it'll be seen really well in a few years' time. Once everyone thought it was going to be an Oscar film, and it turns out it was the anti-Oscar film. It's doing the things you don't do in an Oscar film, and like have orgies and things like that. And it just has a great atmosphere throughout, and a sense of a world changing. So it's a high recommendation for me. Now we're going to Wonka. Wonka is the film by Paul King. It's a prequel, but don't let that scare you. It's a good prequel. It's about the making of Willy Wonka and how he comes from the sea to this made-up city that in the trailers looks like London, but it's not London. It's a city on the coast, and there's a big cathedral. It's very British, but it's a thing with some British institutions, but it's multicultural. It's got variety of people in different areas, but it's not woke or anything. It's not like try to tell you that you are right or wrong for something or other. Literally everybody involved, no matter what your skin colour is, you could be good or bad, doesn't matter. It just depends on your character. So it's not. It might come across as potentially that way in the trailers, but it's not actually that in reality. It's just like a never land of all these cultures coming together, and in this institution where you still have power bases, you still have people in charge, and good guys and bad guys. And into this comes Wonka. So there's a chocolate cartel where these guys make chocolate, run the town and run this whole area. And even though they're meant to be rivals, they're actually in cahoots. And into this easy setup for them, where they've got lots of money, lots of respect, they can pay off the police to do what they want, comes Willy Wonka with his new chocolate. And they have to stop him because he's going to make them obsolete. So it does have an alien quality, like the man in the white suit, this sense of this madman who's going to destroy everything that's been built up and has been set up, and it's all going to go to hell because of this crazy Willy Wonka guy. So into that thing comes Wonka, and then he slowly but surely starts to build up his business, but with a lot of problems. This is a film. It's not like I'm going to set up a business and it all goes right. No, this is like his aim is to set up the business, but you have to wait the whole film for him to do it because he has issues. He can't read, which is a problem. He's very verbal. He can speak the stuff, but he can't read. He's in a world of his own. He doesn't understand a lot of the kind of more complex things that go on. So this is Wonka before he became a lot more cynical in the Roald Dahl books. This is him experiencing the world and being enthusiastic before he started to turn the world and see it as a darker place, which actually works really well. You get a sense of, look, there's a progression between this and the Roald Dahl book. There's a sense of it's slowly brought into place, but there's a story to be told here, and there's stuff will be dealt with down the line, but don't worry about it. And basically it's him setting up a business, and he can't read. He ends up signing a deal which makes him destitute and stuck in this house working for this old partner lover who are cruel, very much the old London stereotypes from the Oliver Twist movies or something. They seem benign, but it turns out they're evil. That thing. Olivia Colman plays her. It's a ball playing an absolute villain. So Wonka's group turns out that the other people have been fooled by them, and they're trapped in this basement, basically working every day for them. And Wonka's like, I'm not giving up for this. So he's getting faced down by the cartels, the chocolate cartels. He's been duped by this woman, but that just makes him more determined to succeed because his passion is chocolate. And he slowly finds out what the other people are about and brings them together to form a group who are going to take on the chocolate cartel and escape. And that's the film, but it's a musical. So there's a lot of musical sequences, the music's fun. Dimly Chalamet as Wonka really works because he has the exuberance of Wonka, like the kind of person who would create this chocolate, who would be, it would see as logical. Why would you not love tons of chocolate? And he's a bit clueless at times, but he's also smart at other times. But Chalamet makes it work. He's one of those actors who came aboard early and was very overhyped to a degree, in a sense that it was been forced on you. You have to love this guy. But as the films are coming out, you realise he is very good. It's just like the publicity kind of got in the way. But now, as you see the films come out, he's actually good. He's a lot more charming in this than he was in June. He was a bit blank for me, but in this one, he's much more. You get a sense of much more personality involved here, and he works really well. He plays off his sidekick is this young black girl who's an orphan and it's their relationship is really the core of the film. You know, she's like, it's that thing as they don't speak the cliches, they just show it. He teaches her certain things to be confident, she teaches him things like to read and to have some common sense and to notice the people around him might be useful to him, and rather than being just in his head and relying on himself. So their bond really focuses, because she's the one who she doesn't quite believe him half the time. Like, she thinks sometimes he's a bit mad, because he claims to keep on getting attacked by a strange orange man, which turns out to be true, but for a while she thinks he's just mad. And turns out it's an Oompa Loompa played by Hugh Grant, who's having a ball as the most grumpiest person ever. And as you know, Hugh Grant is very funny as a grumpy bastard. He's just really good at it. And I'm sure the process of doing this film with all the makeup and all the special effects probably made him even grumpier, but it works good for the film. And the film's just charming. I mean, the thing is about it is, talking about it is, there's not much to say about it beyond it's charming. It just works. Paul King made the Paddington films. If you've seen them, you like them, you'll like this. It's the same thing, the same weird mix of a traditional story, but done in a certain way that it mixes it up a little bit so that you know where it's going roughly, but all the details are going to be different, and there's going to be strange sides that actually pay off, and there's just a charm to it. And the villains are enjoyable. The chocolate magnets are incompetent, but they have so much power that it makes it plausible they can be defeated, but they have so much power at their disposal, it makes it difficult for Wonka throughout the film. So it works in that way. I mean, Olivia Colman's actually the more intimidating villain, because she's evil in horrible ways. And it's the whole film just has a real charm to it, and it's got the sense of wonder about trying to, the thing you're passionate about is finding something you're passionate about, and taking it to its logical extremes means that it gives the director a chance to do all these things with chocolates and these magical things that echo the book of Roald Dahl's books, because I've read the books as a kid, and this feels more like the books, even though it's not the plot of the books, than the versions. Like, both versions of the Charlie and Chocolate Factory, neither of them really worked for me, because I've read the books as a kid, and it's like, it's not quite right. This film actually feels much more right to the books, partially because the special effects now can do certain things that means you can do these sequences almost as a throwaway. Like, it's not the main focus. The main focus is the emotional development, but there's no like thing where it costs so much money to do this, so we're going to foreground it. No, it's in the background. It's part of the story. It's not. It becomes a foreground when it needs to, then it gets pushed back to the background when it needs to be. So there's much more sense of charm and sense of it's delightfully weightless. A sense of it's there for when you need it, but you can push away. And just the atmosphere of the kind of the environments Wonka makes, like when it starts to make the worlds of chocolate. This is a magic to it that the other films didn't really have. I keep on getting told the Gene Wilder one had that, and I was like, I've seen the film and it doesn't. It really doesn't. But this one does. This one delivers. This is the best Wonka film by a mile. It's that thing is, you really hope that they can come back together and actually do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory like properly, and do a proper good version of it, because there's never really been one. Because now you've set it up, if you can age Shyamalan a little bit in an interesting way, you can actually do it, because in this time he's had to see the good of people, and then have him turn and become much more cynical would be an interesting development. And I mean, this team, you could probably do it in an interesting way, but we'll see. But this is a very good film. I highly recommend it. Both these films I'd highly recommend. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm back to another one, but go see both these films.